Hello everyone, we are team number 5 and we're going to talk about our project of Fundamentals of Software Engineering called Algebraintor. The members of the team are Ashley Shadin Aguilar Moreno, Osmar Jesus López Delgado, Frida Pineda Alvarado, Cesar Alejandro Huerta Méndez, Miguel Ángel Reyes Martínez and Arturo Cadena Méndez. Before explaining the whole process, we would like to talk about Algebraintor. Before we came up with the project idea, we realized that one of the biggest problems that the students face when studying for their exams of algebra is that the exercises that appear in the search engines do not usually satisfy their needs. They are too easy, too difficult, they do not include the answers, and so on. Even the simple action of searching on the web for the required material takes time that could be directly used for studying a topic of interest. In addition, many students do not always have access to internet, so they may not have the necessary material to study during their free time before a test. Therefore, we decided to create an app where students find intermediate and basic algebra exercises, divided into 3 different levels with the answer and some videos included. To begin, we define the goal of the product, which is to grant students access to a library of algebra exercises as a tool to practice several topics of basic intermediate algebra. Then we wrote the expected results that are the implementation and design of the main idea, and the validation of the requirements, and the limitations that are the content will only be available in Spanish during the early version of the project, and that since the project is aimed to a very specific audience, the optimal use is restricted to this group of people. Users. We divide our users into 2 types. The primary is users who are students of the superior semesters of college that take the subject of algebra, and the potential users that are teachers in the mathematics area.
Actually, the first thing we did was the creation of a repository. Looking for a place where we could work together and track the project progress, we found out that GitHub was the best place for us. We learned the basics and fundamentals and created a repo where we worked throughout all the process, work process and methodology. To manage the way to carry out this project, we used the Scrum methodology as a basis. However, we did not follow it in its entirety due to several factors such as the context of our team and certain setbacks that arose along the way. First deadline, requirements. 2 types of requirements were made, functional and non-functional. In the case of the first list, the functional requirements were divided into 2 parts, user and system requirements. The MosQ method was used in the requirements, which is a full-step approach to prioritizing which project requirements will provide the best return. Artifacts. In the first part of artifacts, we decided to use the user stories. To get these stories, surveys were made on Google Forms. And that's pretty much for the first deadline. So let's go with the second one. Sprints. In the second part of the project, the tasks were divided into sprints, which are periods of time in which a set amount of work is done. The sprints serve to do agile and orderly work. In our case, each sprint lasts approximately 1 week, and each sprint had an average of 3 activities, except for the 5th sprint, since it was the last one and because of the organization of the team. Evolution of requirements. In the second installment, the requirements underwent many changes. Some functional requirements were changed to non-functional ones. Some were added and others were removed. Aspects related to the wording and the objective of the project were corrected. Artifact refinement. A new artifact was made, and the user stories were improved during the development. In this case, the new artifact was a use case diagram, which is a visual representation that allows you to see the interactions that a user or a client could have with the system.
In this part of the project, prototypes of the application were made. In our case, we made 3 prototypes, one in PowerPoint and 2 in Figma. These were made in order to see how our application would look and check if they correspond to the requirements. The first prototype was developed in PowerPoint and has a simple but very useful design and information for the verification of certain requirements. And this prototype also served as the basis for the development of other more detailed prototypes of The second prototype was made in Figma, and it has more functions and a better design. It is also much more interactive for the users. The third and last prototype of the application would be the most accurate representation of the application, since it has more details and meets almost all the established requirements. This part of the project was to show the interfaces to the clients so that they could give us comments about it and tell us what things could be improved in the design and development of the interfaces. Although most of the feedback was positive, there were some details to improve the design. In the last stage of the project, a summary of everything that was done in the project was made. It also includes all the tools and methods used. This whole process was explained in a video. It also includes all the
applications and services used. GitHub is a platform in which projects are stored so that people can work collaboratively. Here is all the work done on the project. Microsoft Teams. Teams is an application for teams in which members communicate and collaborate on certain tasks. Here, all the team meetings were held and it was the main source of communication for the development of the project. WhatsApp. WhatsApp is a messaging application. Like Teams, it was used to communicate between members, but in a more informal and fast way. Figma. Figma is an application for prototyping. As mentioned above, 2 prototypes of the application were made here. Canva. Canva is a design application. Here the slides of the deadlines were made. YouTube. YouTube is a video sharing website. Here the videos of each deadline were shared. Binacles. Another of the fundamental tools during the realization of this project were the binacles, which had a record of what was done in each meeting and the pending that were established. Organization. For the organization of work, the project's tool from GitHub was used. Here, to each activity were assigned points according to its difficulty. As well, it indicated who was in charge of that task. One of the advantages of projects is that it was in the same GitHub and allowed to mark if each activity was carried out or not. Contribution metrics. Contribution metrics were used to record how much each team member did on the project. First, the individual contribution metrics were made containing the activities that each team member did and their value. The value of each activity was determined according to the time and knowledge they required. It should be noted that there were activities that were carried out by one person or more members of the team. Finally, the general metrics were made in which was entered the total of the activities carried out that had a value of 10%, the points obtained from the activities that had a value of 80%, and the number of attendances at the meetings had a value of 10%.